Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian Verpoten. I am a volunteer at Mellemfolkeligt Samvirke Aarhus. Mellemfolkeligt Samvirke is the Danish branch of the NGO ActionAid. As volunteers here in Aarhus, we want to organize events and to educate ourselves about the world and about how we can work to change it. But with Corona, it's very difficult to organize events. We also thought that this could be a possibility to actually reach out to other actors, international, that we cannot invite usually, and to talk with them in order to have content that we will be able later to use in our activities. That is why I'm sitting here today with another Sebastian Franco, who works at the GRESEA. The GRESEA is a research group for economic alternative. Is it right?
This is right.
You also work for ENCO, like the European Network of Corporate Observatories, and for the Coalition of Social Movement Ultrasummit. And maybe if you can start presenting a bit yourself and the various organizations that you work for.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here with you today. So yes, I'm Sebastian Franco. I'm a half Swiss, half Colombian guy of 43 years old now. So I used to live in Switzerland. I grew up there, but now I'm living in Brussels, where the GRESEA is. So 2 words on the GRESEA. So GRESEA is a research center, but with an objective of economic literacy. That's our idea of economic research, meaning that we try to have an approach of popular education around economic topics. So in 2-3 words, we are mainly interested in the GRESEA on the supply chains, the global supply chains in the contemporary capitalism, and the division, the international division of labor that shapes the world today, and especially the multinational corporations that are the main nodes of the globalization. So we have the idea of researchers involved in the social movement. So we are not academicians, we are not all of us are expert or let's say very precise academic expert, but we are trying to link this both world, the world of researching and the world of social movement and activism. Yes, that's the GRESEA. I used to work also from a long time in the Ultrasummit. Perhaps we will talk later on this, but in 2 worlds, it's a network of social organizations, trade unions, associations, NGOs, aiming to struggle against the neoliberal tendencies in Europe and trying to build a coalition of organizations to resist this kind of trend.
Yeah, and I know that with the GRESEA, you're part of a network, the European Network of Corporate Observatory. Can you maybe explain a bit what is a corporate observatory and why are they so important? Like, what is the problem with multinational that we need to be very aware of?
Yes, so since 2016, we have the year we launched this ENCO network, European Network of Corporate Observatories. So this is a network and a coalition of, let's say, a little bit more than 10 organizations in Europe that inform on multinational corporation, on behaviors of this multinational corporation. And as I said before, because we believe in that multinational corporation are the nodes of globalization, are the main drivers also of the international economic and financial infrastructures. Multinational are also the places where we can better analyze the evolution of production processes, but also the development of working conditions. And in the end, it's also, and we believe in this, it's potentially the place where possibly we can link different national, social, and social realities, places around the world that can be connected through the resistance to multinational corporations. So yes, this is a very interesting network. We try, as it's still new, we are still finding the ways to work together, but we have already published some studies together. Like the last one I was involved in is around corporate Silk Road, we call it. So it's an analysis of the role of multinational corporation in the so-called new Silk Road.
Can you maybe explain a bit what you mean by new Silk Road? I'm not sure everyone is aware of it.
So yeah, the new Silk Road or the Belt and Road Initiative is the political and economic initiative of the Chinese government. The idea for China and for a Chinese firm, etc., is to connect their economy with many countries of the world, let's say. So it's a really important push of investment, of Chinese investment, but not only. What we have also put in light is the way how European corporations are involved in this project and are making also profits on developing, for example, ports, airports, roads, train, digital infrastructure, etc. In China, in Europe, but as well in the crossing countries like all the Central Asia, no? That linked Europe with China.
And I would be curious to hear your opinion or your explanation on because a lot of people would expect that if we face issues, we just need to ask the state to regulate. But I think one of the problems is that the state cannot regulate so much on multinationals. Or maybe can you explain a bit more about why they are so problematic?
Yeah, we have, I think, mainly a problem of dimension. No, when you are thinking, and the power is mainly still in the national level, and economic and economics, etc. It's totally at global level. So we see how it's difficult for countries to regulate, for example, the big digital corporation as the Facebook, Apple, Google, etc. You have a certain kind of way for the big countries like United States, China. There are still national powers able to regulate. I think so, and that's also the purpose of the European Union, no? But you have this difference, and yeah, the difficulties for nationals to regulate, but also lack of willingness to do it. So also with an ideological way of thinking, saying that the private corporation must regulate themselves and the state has not to intervene. So I think we have these two elements that can explain how today it looks that the state have no forces to regulate. But I think it could be in another way.
Yeah, and I guess that's why we can also talk a bit more about Gresea, because I know that it's a group that's research economic alternatives. And you say that it was also working on popular education, and I'm not sure everyone outside of Belgium or France is so familiar with what popular education is about. Can you maybe tell a bit what this means and what the intent behind it?
Yeah, the idea of popular education is to bring knowledge of social or economic issues to the general citizens in a country, in the idea to build a critical culture, a culture of critics around these topics that are mainly seen as technical, are for elites, etc. And we believe that as it concerns everybody and as it has impact on everybody's life, it's important for the people to understand the main tendencies in these topics, and it's not so complicated. Many times there are basic political choice behind them, so it's important as a researcher to bring understandable information about those topics.
And if I may ask something about yourself, because you say you're a researcher but also an activist, and if you could like point one or two discovery that you made as in your research that helped you to understand these issues better, what would they be, like the most critical ones?
Yeah, I think what can bring the research is a more perhaps nuanced, I don't know how you say it, vision, and it's a way to see also the contradiction of every dynamic, and I think this kind of thing are very important when we have to take political stance on any issue. Obviously, political must be more radical or more sometimes more simple stance concerning a topic, but we always have to be aware of the contradiction that could be very destabilizing when doing politics. So yeah, that I think that this is the most important for me. And as I'm a new researcher, I used to be more an activist or organizer of events, etc. But now I'm learning about this, and yeah, I think it makes my political position, I think, stronger, perhaps more nuanced, but stronger again.
Could you give an example on which this new complexity has like been something interesting for you?
Well, I'm very interested in the rise of China again in the 21st century, and I think this is one of the most important facts in economics and in politics in the last century. So it's very interesting to try to understand what are the real dynamics in China today, in its relation with the world, and we are a little bit stuck in a very polarized debate around China, not China, the dictatorship, freedom, etc. That, from my point of view, cannot make us understand the reality of what's going on there. Again, the contradiction of their development, etc., etc. So for me, it's very interesting and important to look better with also humility. As a researcher, I think humility is important, meaning that to know something very well takes a lot of time, take a lot of readings, take a lot of thinking, etc. So it is not always compatible with the political debate, etc. But okay, I think it's important to try to link them both. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like what you told about like popular education and the possibility to have organizations like the GRISEA are so important, because it's allowing people to research these subjects and then to give back to the public the result of the research. And I know it was not in the question I sent you, but like you just talk a bit about China, and it's going to be very difficult, I guess, to try to ask you to summarize a bit what you think is so interesting about China today. But if you can try in a few sentences, just because you said that's a big issue, a big subject with a lot of complexity. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, except the fact that in China there are 1.4 billion people, that means an extraordinary potentiality of organization, of working, etc. Except the dimensions, the amazing, perhaps it's for us in Belgium or I don't know, in Netherlands or in
Denmark.
Denmark,
yeah.
it's difficult to have an idea of what that's mean, the government of such a country, the organization in such a country. But except this, I think for us Westerners, let's say researchers, activists, etc., it brings a very destabilizing issue, meaning that we are used unconsciously or unconsciously of a sort of predominance of our thinking in the world. Western intellectuals have been imposing ideas, good ones as well as bad ones in the world, and so we indirectly we think in a kind of superiority of this, and China is breaking this absolutely. So now China is coming and being better, let's say, in some areas than the Western world, in research, in etc. And so I think this fact very interesting because it's a real breach in what we used to call imperialism, historic imperialism, colonialism, etc. And I think it's very stimulating for Western researchers and thinkers, etc., intellectuals to see and to try to listen and to make contact. And perhaps it's not very easy to do it, but with with Chinese researchers, with Chinese thinkers, and we can see that they have very different ways to analyze something, etc. So it's very stimulating in this sense.
That sounds so amazing, like so interesting. Yes, and I think that's also like a moment in which we can maybe go back to activism. And you say you were involved in the Ultrasummit. Can you talk a bit about that, and also how like being a researcher influence your position to or your way to be an activist today?
Yeah, so I'm working in Ultrasummit since let's say 6 years, but I used to be also involved in these topics, meaning austerity policies, neoliberal policies in Europe before, also in movements against also the TTIP, also etc. But what was the question? How
I mean, Ultrasummit, if I understand well, is a coalition of social movements, right?
Yes, it is born almost 10 years ago, let's say in a moment where the European Social Forum was a little bit declining, and several organizations across Europe decided to, okay, let's continue working together, but in a more organizational way, no? So it's not just a space to discuss, but the idea is to act, to resist concretely to these policies. We have experienced a lot of difficulties. It's very interesting in this way that between what you think it's good to do and what you can achieve, the difference can be really wide, and we have difficulties concretely to act at international level. So how you organize resistance transnationally, it's not, we have not a really clear answer on this. The dynamics, even in a continent as Europe, that has, let's say, same characteristics, links between countries, etc. But we have experimented that the dynamics between countries could be very different, and that makes our common action difficult. And well, this is also a stimulating experience, but sometimes a little bit depressing, because we are not able to resist. And concretely, nobody can say we are being able to stop or to put brakes to the neoliberal policies. They are still in place. They are still acting very strongly. So perhaps the pandemic has had more strengths in changing the politics. So okay, but we continue. We try to make the balance of our activities, etc. And we are, and what as researcher I can bring, I think it's also trying to see where are the elements of the new, let's say, of what are the seeds of future movements, of future politics, of future activism. And I think there are many in Europe, because let's say the 10 to 15 last years, there have been a lot of experiences, not very successfully in achieving political result, but yes, putting.
Oh, I'm losing you a bit, Sebastian. Now, are you still hearing me? Are you still there? Yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
Can you hear me? See me?
Yes, I can see you, but it's the connection looks unstable, let's say.
Okay, let's try. You were like, we are just a small technical incident, but you were just telling me about the seeds that you were seeing right now in Europe, and or in the last year there were some inspiring movement, and I would love to hear more about that.
Yes, I think there have been of many kinds. We can talk about the Youngs for Climate, the feminist movement, also very interesting, the Yellow Jackets in France, but also municipal struggles, environmental struggles like the ZAD in France and others. So there are many kind of experiences, and I think it's time for us to have the lessons, to learn of the lessons of those experiments, and try, and perhaps that's the step that is still to be done, is a more general effort of articulation and coordination of those movements. We have not found yet the ways, the organizational ways to potentialize all the strengths, the local, the small strengths of every groups to build a common strength of a popular movement. And that's, in the past, the organization who have done this where the trade unions, the trade union movement linked with the political and communist movement, that together they build a really important strength in the society. Today we have not anymore these strengths, and we have to rebuild other common organization together, but yeah, composed by all these different realities.
Yes, and maybe I can like also tell like about personal reflection on this, which is that as a person that has lived in various countries in Europe, I'm often struck by how little a lot of people know about what is happening outside of their countries. And having lived in like the French-speaking countries, but also in other countries, of use of interaction between this world and translation of each other's work. And I think that's what we're also trying to do here, is to like building these bridges and getting some relationship to be started. I don't know if you have the same experience as someone that lived in various countries as well.
Yes, and in Ultrasummit and elsewhere, we believe that the first step is to inform activists, even social movement of a country, about what is going on in other countries. You have some social movements that are well connected in Europe. Let's say people fighting for housing in the cities are connected in European networks. That's not the case, for example, for trade unions. Even if they are international or European organization, the way of thinking unionism is still very national, and that's still a difficulty for the movement. But I believe that more and more, and also new tools can contribute to this, sharing of information. But that's just the first step. So I think we can see what is going on elsewhere, but it cannot necessarily change our possibility and our strength. So this is a first step, but a necessary first step, but really not enough still.
And so like pushing in that direction as well, like if you would see some need for like structuration, do you have like successful examples like in other parts of the world that you know about?
So yeah, we have done, for example, with Ultrasummit, a very interesting assembly. It was in 2017, I think, of deliverers, riders across Europe. So we have seen very local and small, let's say, collectives of riders, etc., gathering together here in Brussels. And we have seen a very dynamic discussion, very good debate, etc., and with the decision to organize themselves in a transnational federation of couriers. So that was very interesting to see this process. The difficulty is still the perennity of this kind of organization, because international collaboration and work is very still complicated. The question of languages, the question of resources, the question of physical encounters, etc., make that it's not easy to work internationally in a continuous way during years and years. But okay, I think also perhaps with this new way of virtual meetings came in our life, in a daily life with the pandemic, okay, can improve this way, because it looks like easier to connect like this, but still it takes resources to organize international.
Yes, and that's also something that is so important, and that we don't always think about. Like it means that people need to have the time and the energy, and that means money. And I know that in Belgium, for instance, there's a lot of ways in which people can get paid to produce intellectual alternative culture, and that doesn't exist in all countries. So
yes, for sure, and also with this new situation of the pandemic, we have seen a setback of international collaboration. When I try to organize something or send information through our channels, I have much less feedbacks, etc., than before, because people are really now involved with the local reality, with the difficulties of the daily life and activities, and yes.
I have one last question, which is about what are your projects, and together with the Gresea, but also with the other organization, like what are the next projects or the next thing that you really looking forward to work on?
Yes, so with the ENCO network, we will have launch a project around health commodification and healthcare privatization. So we are willing to show also for activists or trade unions, etc., who are the real winners of these policies, who is earning a lot of money of privatization and commodification of health, because also we believe it's very actual as discussion, as we have seen the importance of collective health and prevention, promotion of health. So this is a very important project for us. We are also willing to work on the recovery plans and to document where really is going the money of the recovery plans, because all the politicians are talking about ecological transformation, digital, etc. But we want to document or try, because we are in the first step of this investment, where this money is planned to go, and probably we will see a lot of this money going to multinational corporations that will fire thousands of workers, etc., etc., etc. So it's important for us to demystify what the politicians are willing to us believe in this so-called investment for the future. An interesting activity we are doing with Ultrasummit is we want to organize in the month of June with trade unions, mainly the French CGT and other international partners, conference on experiences and proposition of workers in the ecological transformation. That means trying to discuss around the plans by workers or trade unions concerning their firms or their sector, and trying to have a discussion around the popular and working class ecological transformation. And I hope, and perhaps the friends that are listening to us can also send to us interesting experiences, also of alliances between civil society organizations and trade unions, but also, yeah, mobilization of workers around this. So, yeah, I think it's very interesting, and yeah.
Yes, I look very much forward to hear more about all these projects. And please send always the reports when they are written, or if you want to talk more about them, you're very welcome to join us again.
Sure, I will. Okay.
Okay, I don't know if you have like one last word or something that you thought I should have asked a question about and I didn't.
No, I think we have discussed everything for a moment. No, I don't have, but to thank you also for this opportunity, and to invite all the audience also to be curious, because yeah, sometimes we believe to be in a very dark and depressing situation, but I believe always, as I like we have to see again the contradiction of those of this dynamic, and more we are in dark times, more there are hopes and seeds of changing this context.
Oh, thanks for this. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to discussing again with you, or to read through the Grazia and the ENCO report.
Okay, thanks, Sebastian, and we will have this opportunity for sure.